I'm Alexa. I'm head of community at House Call Pro.
My name is Roland. I'm one of the co-founders of House Call Pro.
We host the Pro Talks webcast series. You can think of it as a TED Talk for people of the trades and blue-collar workers.
So when the pandemic hit, there was a lot of information coming from the federal government, from the local governments, and we wanted to make sure that we could take that information, deconstruct it, make it simple and actionable for our home service professionals to be able to make sure that the money coming from the government would hit their banks so that they could stay open and ultimately growing.
So it started off as a response, has really turned into this amazing public service, and we've had the opportunity to have on so many incredible guests to our show.
We have hundreds of live viewers, and the recorded version gets viewed millions of times. Our audience consists of home service professionals and small business owners. Join us and make season 2 the best season yet.
Welcome back, Brandon. Thank you so much for joining Roland and I again for season 2 as one of our most seasoned season 1 guests. We are so excited to have you back now. And instead of you bringing a guest with you, we just have you and some really, really great information and slides for our pros here to learn about the stages of their business and how to progress to the next one. So before we get started, I would love if you both could share something that we've recently accomplished together. And it has something to do with the world record.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Brandon take it. Go for it. Run with it.
All right. Yeah. This for me was such an amazing, fun challenge to try to put something together this epic. So as many of you guys and gals are probably aware, there were over 100 events for the home services industry that were canceled, rescheduled, moved around because of coronavirus. And because of that, we wanted to do something super epic. We wanted to put together the world's largest virtual business conference. And when Roland and I put our heads together, we didn't want to just do something small. We wanted to go like shoot for the moon. So we decided to bring in Guinness World Records to verify it as the world's largest virtual business conference ever. Not just like service business conference, like business conference ever. So we did it, and we partnered up, us with House Call Pro and a whole bunch of other partners, and we shot for it, and we crushed and secured the Guinness World Record for the world's largest business conference.
So I feel like we had a little bit of touch and go moment during it.
Oh my
so
gosh.
like anything, something that's this big and this amazing is never just like an easy feat. So I feel like me and you were talking about like halfway through, I think it might've been day 2 or day 3. And we're like, oh boy, all right. We know the number that we got to break. We're kind of here. What were some of the things that we were talking about even then on brainstorming? How do we get more people to this and get them to share this awesome event with all of their friends?
Well, I think the craziest part about all of it was, right as we kind of launched this event, there was a lot of other noise and just things that were happening, super important things that were happening just in our country in general. So people's feeds for stuff was almost like stimulation overload. It was a 4-day long event. It was over 40 speakers. So it was like this big, gigantic thing. And a lot of people, they didn't really start logging in until the event was about ready to close, or even past when the event closed. They started like checking in. So it was that first couple of days where I was like, man, I hope people start showing up. And then all of a sudden it just spiked up a lot towards the end. And we had all kinds of weird technical things that I'd like to pretend everything went super smooth behind the scenes. But, just like with anything else, you just have to send it. You just got to do massive imperfect action and just go for it. And as challenges come up, you take them one at a time and brainstorm with other smart people on your team. Don't just figure it out on your own. So I was reaching out to Roland and Alexa and any other person with a pulse that's smart that I could like grab and like help to figure out how to still pull this off. And it all worked out at the end. It took about a month to verify it through Guinness, but because their review process is a long time. But yeah, we just got that news. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember that took a while and we're just kind of like sitting on the fence, just waiting. Like, are they going to accept it? I remember you're like, hey, Roland, I got to have like all these other people like log into the account. It's not just like one person logging in. So this is a huge accomplishment. Congratulations, Brandon. I mean, it's been so fun to be a partner in this great event. And I'm excited for next year because I feel like every year it's going to get better, bigger, crazier, more guests. And I feel like virtual events like these are here to stay because it was really obvious with the total amount of people that showed up that are still now watching it on the All Access Pass and those types of things, that there's a huge demand for it because you can't just remove all these real-time events in person, in real places, and expect nothing else to be there. So I feel like you found a really good opportunity and matched it with a great event, and putting together all the guests, it just all came together. So
yeah,
it
and
was
great
awesome.
partners. And thanks to you guys for being our premier partner for the whole event and helping to pull us off. There's no way we would have been able to do it without you. So appreciate that as well.
We had
For
a
sure.
fun time. It was a cool thing to be a part of, and all the speakers, including yourself and Roland, actually both of you spoke. I completely forgot. You both did presentations. So Brandon is here today to share the 5 stages of business growth. But before we get started, obviously you can tell we have a great relationship with Brandon. We've had him on a bunch of times before onto this show. But Brandon, could you please just give our viewers and our listeners a background to yourself, who you are, and what you're currently doing?
Sure. So I got my start, as I'm sure every one of you guys and gals got your start as well, home service business owner. That's why you're tuned in watching Pro Talks. And basically kind of fumbled my way through, had a lot of great mentorship and a lot of great people help coach me up through growing my own service business from 0 employees to over 70 employees within about 5.5 years. And along that journey, I discovered 2 really critical things. Coaching, first of all, learn the value of coaching and getting other smart people to help you, because it's a lonely journey of entrepreneurship trying to do it on your own. And the second thing I really learned was the value of systems and putting things together. And the amazing aha moments that I kind of had along the way, especially now, coaching and watching and being involved with thousands of home service business owners, is there's like an actual proven methodology for growing your home service business. There's literally like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And it's why we kind of put together this framework of the 5 stages of business growth and what led us to create our Conquer program. And so that's what I do full-time now. I'm CEO, chief strategist of Conquer, and we're a systems and coaching company. We have 18 certified coaches and growing. We have a whole resource library full of hundreds of documents and templates and done-for-you systems. And we just teach people how to automate and grow their business. And that's what my day-to-day kind of looks like now. And it's awesome. It is like so much fun to help see other people start to get success. It's very cool.
Yeah, and obviously in order to become a good coach, some of the best coaches used to be players themselves. So tell us a little bit about the business, your player days when you were out there in the field, running a great operation, a great business.
Super easy, smooth sailing, no problems, no headaches, no stresses. It's just like easy, just running a service business, easy. No, I'm obviously clearly kidding. It felt like a nightmare at sometimes. I'm not going to lie. There were times when I was curled up in the couch in the fetal position, literally with a panic attack, multiple times when I wanted to close up shop and did not want to get involved. Multiple times when I said employees suck, I quit. And multiple times when the phone wasn't ringing and we had no work lined up for tomorrow, or we had payroll on Friday and it was Monday and we didn't have nearly enough money to cover payroll. Being an entrepreneur is this crazy roller coaster ride, and there's so much ebbs and flows to it. And what I've learned over the years is not to celebrate the highs too much and not to beat yourself too much over the lows. And, kind of like balance out and be a little bit more Zen-like when it comes to things. And easier said than done for sure. And I still struggle with it. I'm not going to lie. Still an entrepreneur business owner. But as we grew my cleaning business, I've gone through every single one of those stages from, literally having 0 employees, the guy on the truck, growing the business, trying to make the phone ring, wearing all the hats. And over the years, as we continued to grow, I started to really, learn the power of putting other smart people onto our team. And I think that's where a lot of home service business owners kind of fail, or not fail. They just don't understand the value of hiring people that are smarter than them to bring them into the business. They feel like I got to go find someone and I got to train that person how to do all the things that I know in my brain. And then before they know it, like you're the bottleneck and everyone's coming to you on a regular basis saying, hey boss, what do we do next? And that's what leads to entrepreneur burnout. Is you have too many reporting lines. There's too many employees on your team and they all directly report to you on your org chart. And it's just like chaotic because you're wearing too many hats.
You
And
can't own
so,
all the things. There's no way. It is
no,
not possible. And I feel like ego is definitely the enemy for many. And
yeah,
that's the first thing that you got to be able to get rid of and really let go of.
I love that. Yeah, you have to be humble and understand that if you're the guy that's out in the field saying no one can clean as good as I do, that's an ego problem right there, and it's going to
Yep.
hold you back from taking that step out of the field, because that belief that no one's as good as you will absolutely 100% prevent you from growing a successful business, because there's actually a lot of people that can do it better than you and me and anyone. I mean, it's that step of understanding where your strengths are and staying in that field.
Yep. And I feel like obviously with these different stages, you learn these things along the way, sometimes the hard way. And hopefully because you're listening and tuned in today, you're going to get some insights and you might even feel like, oh, hey, that's me. I'm at that stage right now. And I think throughout this process, we're going to dive into the different 5 stages. And I feel like regardless of the different type of business that you are, whatever industry it is, these all apply no matter what. All businesses are essentially the same because you got to get other people smarter than you doing things and letting go of control and really focusing on the bigger picture to really get to the place where, you know, it's generating wealth and not just, you know, trading time for dollars.
Yeah,
Totally.
well said. Absolutely.
So before we get into these stages, Brandon, can you give us a background on how you developed these and what we're going to be expecting with these next 5 stages before we dive in deeper with each of them?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Really what kind of led me to create this is understanding that there's like 4 core departments of a service business. You have the production side, you have the admin side that like schedules all the work, you have the marketing side that brings the jobs in, you have the sales side that like sells and converts the jobs. And as I started kind of growing my business, and especially now as we, work with thousands of home service business owners and, between us and all of our coaches, we started to realize that there are like key big leaps of faith that you kind of have to take in your business where it's really scary. And it's like, whoa, I just entered a new stage in my business. Like we're here and it feels like a really big leap to like get into that next spot. And when we started identifying where these big, scary steps were, it led us to realize, hey, there's really these 5 stages. And my good friend and business partner, Josh Latimer, we sat down and we talked about these 5 stages and we dialed in each one of them. And really it's like, getting you from that 0 to, the $10 million home service business and all the steps along the way and what the org charts would look like and what systems you have to put in place. And it just led this really cool path of discovery to kind of create this.
Fantastic. So I'm excited to dive into stage 1. And during this, as Brandon will explain, we're going to help you figure out how to identify which stage that you're in. And you might hear something and say, okay, I'm for sure in that stage. Or you might be on that gap and Brandon's going to show you how you are going to learn how to get over that hump and get over into the next stage. So let's dive into stage 1.
All right, let's do it. So stage 1, I call it the field. This is where you are the owner operator. You're in the field. You're doing all the work. If you're watching this, give like a thumbs up, a high five, raise your hand if this is something that like you're in right now. This is really where you're the owner operator and you're doing all the work yourself. So during this time period, your org chart, if you were to have like an org chart, it looks like this, like you by yourself, or maybe you and an assistant, you finally got your helper, or, maybe you finally have like a lead and an assistant and you're still kind of working, or you've maybe grown to a place to where, it's like you and now you're starting your second crew, but you're still like the lead guy that's out on the jobs, performing all of the services, performing that production. So when you're in stage 1, you're still doing more than like 50% of your hourly quota every single week. You are actually on the tools, whatever tool that is that you're swinging, whether it's a hammer or a squeegee or a pressure washer or a plumbing wrench, whatever that tool is, you're the one that's primarily going out and providing those services that you actually are charging for. And it really kind of gets you to a bottleneck to where there's only so much that you can do out in the field until you start running into what I call the symptoms of needed growth. So your business actually will tell you when it's time to grow. And sometimes as business owners, when we're stressed out and we're frustrated and we have all of these symptoms of going through this, let me explain these pain points that tell you you're ready to move to stage 2. And if you're in stage 1 right now and you're like, boy, I have those symptoms, it might be time to move. You're working long hours. You're booked out for more than a couple of weeks. It's really hard to like fit all your customers in. They're waiting a long time. You can't keep up with all the quotes and the calls. Things are slipping through the cracks. It's like really stressful. Customers are starting to get a little bit frustrated. It's hard to juggle all the sales and marketing. So, you got the marketing stuff going, and then you go out and you perform and you do all the work with maybe your other crews. But then all of a sudden, like you hit that wall to where now it's like, oh crap, I don't have any work scheduled for next week. I got to go out and do marketing and sales. And this is actually your business telling you, wake up, it's time to grow. Like, come on, I got to breathe. I got to grow. And during this time period, this is actually your business telling you, you have to take the next critical step, which is moving into stage 2. And these are your pain points and your symptoms. Some people, they get to this point to where they feel like this is just normal business ownership. And then they regress instead. They say, this is too crazy. I need to like get rid of some of my crews. It's way too stressful because I got to manage them. I got to manage my own work. I got to do the sales and the marketing. I'm wearing all these hats. I can't be this big. I was simpler when it was just me. And then they scale back down and shrink back down even further into stage 1 and go all the way to where it's just them by themselves in the field. And man, let me tell you, have you guys seen, operators like this that are kind of in that stage 1?
Yeah, I would say too, kind of the classic symptom around just working long hours. The first thing that you should know is there are only so many hours in the day. So what ends up happening is you're going to get yourself to the point where you feel like, oh my gosh, there's never enough hours in the day to get all the stuff that I've done. And then another symptom, you were talking a little bit about it, where it's like, oh, you're juggling doing, the sales versus doing the production. Oftentimes too, for a lot of businesses, there's a seasonality component and there's feast and famine. So it's like you do sales and marketing, you go sales, marketing, knock doors. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do production. And then you're kind of seesawing back to the other side. So if you're feeling like you're oscillating between those two, or you're just experiencing like mini seasonalities within, the bigger season, those are really good indicators, because we definitely do see this. And oftentimes too, when you mentioned being booked out a couple of weeks, obviously with the rules and the economics on supply and demand, if you're booked out that far, maybe you need to price yourself a little bit higher. And maybe we can talk about this a little bit as how to make that next jump, because your costs will necessarily increase the more people that you add. So you might need to price a little bit higher to get there, because you have limited supply, limited hours, and you should make sure customers are never waiting that long. But is there a certain kind of like revenue range typically for a home service business that you feel is like the limit of this stage, Brendan?
Yeah, it's challenging to say, obviously, because maid service is going to price out a little bit different than like a painting company that has a lot of materials, or a construction company, or a plumbing or an HVAC company that has a lot of large material sources with it. So there's really kind of a change. But like, let's just pick one. Just the example of like an exterior cleaning business, let's say. It's possible, or a window cleaning business, it's possible you could get up to, even 500,000 a year in revenue with you still working on a truck with someone else. And you have, another crew, or maybe 2 crews that are also running. But man, you're doing double and triple duty of not only doing the production, but you're doing the sales, and you're doing the marketing, and then you're doing the scheduling, you're doing the dispatching, you're doing all these hats. As you get to that point, as you start growing in revenue and you start approaching that gap of how far you can go, you're either going to collapse on yourself like a dying star, or you're going to succumb to the fact that your business is ready to grow to stage 2. And hopefully, as you're watching this and you're like, man, that's my pain point, now you're like all pumped up and fired up to see what stage 2 is, so that you can start taking that next step.
I do have a question. One more question about stage 1. Can I advance to stage 2? Let's say I'm working long hours and I can't keep up with quotes and calls, but I'm not necessarily making that 300K, and I don't have 4 employees under me. Is it still possible to progress to stage 2?
That's a great question. Yes, absolutely. There are some people that never start out in stage 1. From the very, very beginning that they start their business, they never once handle the tools. They have a marketing brain, they have a systems brain, and they actually immediately hire technicians from day 1. And some people think that's impossible, but let me tell you, some of the fastest growing companies are the ones that literally just start a business and never start out in the field because they recognize the value in these upper level executive positions, that, you know, how much value they bring to their business to be up there, not in the lower level positions where maybe you can, you know, bring in employees at $15 an hour, $20 an hour, 25, et cetera, you know, this lower threshold. There's these higher level executive positions that need to be filled. And when they focus on that, they can skip stage one altogether. And there's some people that actually do that.
That
That
is
makes a lot of
something I
sense.
never even thought about. That's super cool.
You want to go into stage two?
Let's do it.
What do you call stage 2, Brandon?
Stage two, it's really clever. The office.
Field to the office.
Really clever. So I tried to make the language as simple as possible. No like sexy proprietary language here, but this is where, guess where you are? You're spending most of your time in the office. So really 50% of your time is now where you're in the office. And this is a critical step that I call the big leap. And this is the scariest leap sometimes for people to do, especially if they've been in stage one for years. The thought of going to stage two like gives shivers up the back of their spine. And this is the big scary leap that involves them being in, you know, let's say they're out in they're doing production. They have 1 or 2 crews, maybe 3 crews. They're like really tapped out. They finally get out of the field. They were in the field and they jump out of it. They're not doing any production, any service. They are purely focused on the office stuff, you know, the admin, the scheduling, answering the phones, going out, selling jobs, marketing jobs, building some of the systems out. And for you to get into stage two, your first systems you really got to work on are some of your training systems to make sure that your production people are delivering quality, consistent work without you being a helicopter parent out in the field, making sure they're doing the job right. You know, so using House Call Pro's checklist features and going through and making sure, you know, like building out those systems so that your production crews are able to deliver consistent quality work and leveraging your CRMs like House Call Pro and making sure that, you know, that's there. That's what enables you to get out of stage two. And for me, when I jumped out of stage two, it was terrifying. I would like literally park my truck up the road from where my technicians were working, and I would like sneak out so they wouldn't see my truck, and I'd like sneak out and I'd like kind of like look at them around the bushes.
I can imagine it.
What are they doing? What are they doing over there?
Like a crazy ex or like a crazy helicopter parent.
Yes, it was totally. I mean, and business ownership is so much like a parent. You know, when your teenager gets their driver's license and you're freaked out and then they like drive down the road, right? It's almost feels emotionally like that when you watch your crews go out to a job, take care of a job without you on the truck. And it's scary. That's why I call it a big leap. But it's a critical leap in order for your business to grow and in order for you to have more time freedom to focus on the more important things in your business and more time freedom to delegate and literally like have, you know, spend time with your family, do the things that you really want to do, not necessarily helicoptering over all of your employees, right?
Yep.
So these are kind of your pain points and your symptoms of stage two that are identifying you and telling you it's time to move to stage three. So if let's say currently you are out of the field, you've completely moved out of the field and you have several crews, maybe 3, 4 crews, maybe 5 crews, you're like answering all the phones, you're scheduling the jobs, you're doing quality control calls, you're doing sales and marketing stuff, you're ordering supplies and inventory, and you're still wearing a ton of hats. The more crews that you add on to your business, the more you start feeling all these same symptoms again. You're working long hours. You know, it's hard to keep up with all the quotes and calls that you have coming in. It's chaotic in the office. Like you come in on Monday and there's 15 voicemails and there's like back-to-back phone calls and you're playing receptionist in your business as well as doing the sales and the marketing and everything else. And you miss phone calls. It's poor customer service. You deal with all these bottlenecks. This is your business telling you it's time to move to stage 3 and start letting your business grow into the next one.
Yeah, I think something really helpful that you said, which is kind of like a golden nugget kind of hidden within what you said, is the ability to do checklists and systems is really a way to replicate so that you can duplicate. And so if you don't have those things in place, it's going to be very hard to have that consistent product to then even begin to manage. Because if you're sitting there in the office dealing with customers and one thing seems different than how you used to do it and another one is different,
Right.
it's going to be really hard to go fix those things, which cause that kind of that stress, that pain, that anxiety. So if you don't have those things in place within the stage 2, you're going to find it really hard to get to that stage 3 because you're constantly going to be playing this game of whack-a-mole. And that's never a good position to be in as a business owner.
That's such a good point to bring up. And actually, I experienced this same thing. As many people know about my backstory, I bought my dad's business. He was owner operator for 33 years in the window cleaning company, and literally heart disease. Like, he had a bus factor of 1. 2012, the business ceased to be, and I came in and bought the business so that him and my mom could retire. And guess where all of his systems lived? In his brain. Yeah. In his brain. So like, he had a paper calendar of all of the appointments that he had on there. It was like a 2-inch thick paper calendar that he had like custom printed on this calendar software. He had black book of all the contacts. There's no CRM. There's no Google Calendar, no anything. The hardest part about it was I had to like jump in. My dad's literally laying at home because of his operations and the stuff that he had to take it super, super easy. And so I went out, and I guess what I was doing, I was calling my dad like 5 times a day, because customers would say, they'd be upset. Well, your dad would always do it this way. Well, your dad always did it that way. He always made sure and locked the doors when he left. He always made sure and did this and did that. So you have this, if you're in stage 1, you have this golden opportunity to start taking all the information in your brain and start writing it down into your CRM. Put the job notes really detailed about what the client wants there, so that any technician, anyone that comes in, before they go up to the door, they look at that and they say, oh, they got the dog Fifi here, and Fifi's favorite treats are this. And, and it's like, and we got to make sure not to let Fifi out the front door. And then when you show up, your technicians can say, hi, my name is Brandon with your company, and I just wanted to let you know, oh, there's Fifi. Oh, we're going to make sure not let her out. And then suddenly, like, your technicians are the rock stars. So thinking about how you can set your technicians up to win will greatly free up your time to where you don't have to be a helicopter parent.
Mm-hmm. So you can trust that they're going to perform the same level you did, which is a fear that I hear from so many pros about why they're scared to hire their first person, or why they haven't hired another tech yet, because they know their customers want the level of service they provide. But if you have all those things written down, you have systems in place, it's going to be really easy for that rock star person you hired to pick up where you left off. They might even like them better than you, even though you may not want to admit it.
Yeah, I sure hope they do. Yeah.
Brandon, let me ask you this question. I know you talk to a lot of people as you're coaching them. How do you get someone to be okay with not running the service when someone says, no, I want Brandon to do the work? So I want Brandon. Brandon used to be the guy that did the work for me. Where's Brandon? How do you overcome that objection as like an owner? How do you talk to the customer? I feel like that's something that I hear really often our pros are talking about.
The biggest thing is to just be transparent. Just say, our company is growing so rapidly. Brandon's full-time job is just setting up the technicians with the tools and the experience and the education they need in order to deliver our consistent service you're used to. And so, literally just like pivoting to saying, hey, Brandon's still in the business full-time. Don't worry. Brandon's still the one that's supervising everything. He's putting in all the training systems, the scheduling systems, the notes, the consistency to make sure that no matter who comes to your home, he's the one that's vetting all of the employees and making sure that we have criminal background screens. And we're going to send you a picture of the technician before they show up, along with the biography on them. And I promise you, you're going to absolutely love John, who we're going to be sending out to your house. Here's a picture of him. Here's his biography. Here's who he is. People don't like change, right?
Yeah.
But as long as the change still delivers the result that they're looking for, it's going to be fine. I've had people that all the time, and if you think about it too, if your business is this big right now, you have these many customers that are used to working with Roland. If you're looking to grow your business to this big, you're going to have all of these people that will never know who Roland is.
Yep.
So at some point, we're going to transition over to where the people who only loved my dad, Jim, or only wanted to work with Brandon, eventually is such a tiny little sliver of new customers. All your new customers that are going to come into your business as you grow, they aren't going to know any different. They aren't going to know any different that they didn't work with you. And then you got to look at that future customer subset, not just your existing customers you have now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are always afraid of having that conversation with their existing customers, but it's a conversation you'll need to have to be able to move on to that next stage, because otherwise you won't be able to progress, and you're still going to find yourself servicing those, those original customers that you onboarded years and years ago.
Yeah, and the reality is that, for us, we were a family-owned business, and I would say, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm not going to be coming out and visiting your home anymore. We're going to be focused on our family. I talked about the situation, what was going on with my dad. I was definitely personal with some of those people who had personal relationships, and you know what they all said? Good for you. Good for you. I was wondering when you were going to stop. I was wondering when you're going to stop doing, coming out here. So it's oftentimes not as big of an objection to overcome as you think, because if they care about you and it's a two-way relationship where they actually do appreciate you enough, they're going to celebrate the fact that you're promoting yourself into the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's one of those narratives you've created in your own head because it's your baby and you're scared to move on to the next step. So,
That's right.
So now we are at stage 2. We've talked about when you're ready again. The common theme that we've seen through these first 2 phases is that you can physically and emotionally feel that it is time to grow because you're back to working long hours. It's hard to keep up with quotes and calls, and it's chaotic in the office now that you're full-time in it. So what happens next?
So the next stage, after you've already stepped out of the field, you're in stage 2, but your business keeps growing to the point to where you don't have enough people to wear all the hats. It's just you. You don't have anyone in the office. You don't have anyone in the production side that's helping out with the business. It's literally just you. So stage 3 is what we call sales. Again, super clever, super clever sales, stage name.
Super clever.
But this is really where in stage 3, you're predominantly doing most of the sales activities in your company. You're driving the sales and the marketing, and you're not even the one that's answering the phones as much. You're not even the one that's dealing with the technicians as much. The production side is a little bit more locked down. Some of those processes, as you kind of move through stage 3, you really kind of have yourself with all of your crew leads and everything else. But this is really where you you hire your first non-revenue generating employee, someone like an admin support, an office manager, or hire someone who's a production manager that oversees and supervises all of your leads and your technicians. And for me, this was like one of the scariest hires, because all I did in my normal, number crunching nerdy self was I took out my budget sheet and I put my office manager on the line item, and I was like, how can I afford to pay $40,000, $50,000 in my business? That's such a big expense. But Roland, you brought up a really critical point earlier. You said that the currency in your company is how many hours you have to be able to work on a certain area of your business. Mm-hmm. So if currently you're spending 20 hours, 30 hours a week answering the phones, following up with the customers, if you just erased all of that off your plate to someone that you could delegate that to, and you just purely was able to step into that pure sales role of going to the chamber meetings, going to the networking meetings, joining the multifamily associations, networking with other business owners, going out and chasing large multifamily or commercial projects, basically start working more on the sales side, you will so quickly outsell whatever cost that employee has into your business. A good employee is never a liability in your company. They're always an asset. They don't cost you anything. They really don't. They will always make you money if they're a good employee. You're not hiring them too soon. They're needed in the business. They will always bring an ROI back into your company. So to get into stage 3, that's really where that big one is. And this really allows you to get from that, 500,000 to the 1.5 million, maybe a little bit more, where you have an office manager, you have a production manager. If you're having a hard time finding new technicians, great. Go out and hire a production manager that has experience in recruiting, training, onboarding new employees. Maybe they're a FedEx manager. Maybe they're, someone else that has experience in recruiting, and they can bring some value into your company and say, oh, you need to find people? I did this full time in my previous job. I'll come and find you all the people you want, and I'll get them trained. And, oh, you don't have load plans for your vehicles? Oh, no problem. I'll make load plans for you. Oh, you don't have an inventory system? I got it. Don't worry. We had this awesome system. We'll just use it in. Your managers are going to be thought leaders into your company, not just someone that you train them how to order the stuff and how to do the thing. You want to bring thought leaders into your company. And so that's really the, this stage 3 of this sales side.
hmm So I have two questions. Well, obviously, you're like the hiring and people guru. So the first thing I picked up on was that you're not necessarily hiring people who had maybe even been in the trades before. Maybe they had the similar position in a different industry. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the qualities that you look for in both an office manager and a production manager when you get to stage 3?
Great question. The first thing I look for is, are they a core value alignment? Do they align with our core values? Would they fit in with our company culture? And if you are like, I don't know what my company culture is, I don't know what my core values are, that's okay. You can spend some time to think about that, but it's a really important component because you do not want to mishire someone who does not align with the core values of your company. They don't fit the personality of your company and understand what you stand for. Share your same values. The second thing that I look for when I'm hiring these key executive positions is a beginner's heart. You don't want to hire people. And what this means is it doesn't matter if they have a ton of experience, if they don't have a ton of experience, because frankly, I can work with either. I can work with someone that has tons of years of experience, and they know CRMs, and they know scheduling and dispatching, and they know training and recruiting and onboarding. But if they don't come in with the beginner's heart to understand, hey, you have your own systems, your own processes. I want to come in and I want to be compliant. I want to support those. I want to back up your core values. I'm going to bring my experience, but I'm also going to learn how you guys do things, and I'm going to adapt. Because you can hire someone with a lot of experience. They come in and they're like, no, this is a terrible way to do it. We did it this way before. And then they're like a wrecking ball to all your systems and processes. And they're setting up all their stuff. And you're like kind of freaking out, wondering like, oh my gosh, are they going to disrupt all of our systems? And oftentimes they do. So make sure their core value alignment, they have a beginner's heart, and then they also are bringing something to the table. Fill in your skill sets. If you're the awesome salesperson, you don't need to hire someone that's an awesome salesperson right out of the gate. You can hire someone that fills in some of your weak points, like the admin processes and the production things, remembers all the checklists and ticks all the boxes. So I'm a big fan of things like DISC assessments and other, assessment tools to be able to figure out how they can, piece into your company.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things too that you mentioned, which is just another kind of golden nugget that you dropped there, which is like, if you can hire somebody to do the admin work so you can do the higher value sales work, you might be paying someone $20 an hour, but if you're doing work that's valued at $100 an hour, you're quickly making up that $80 an hour difference, which may seem like a little bit when we're mentioning, oh, you'll get the ROI back. The ROI is right in front of you because of the way that the math works. And so, as any business owner, the hardest things is what you said, which is the networking, talking to other businesses, going to the Better Business Bureau, like hanging out with the Chamber of Commerce, all these different things. Nobody knows your business and can still represent your business to others in a one-to-many basis as you can. That would be impossible to hire someone as good as you, but you can definitely hire someone to do the books, keep the calendar, do the checklist, write the training manuals, like all of those things. So when you're considering that step, definitely in stage 3, buy some of your own time back so you can go earn the company more money.
Love it. Beautifully said. You're exactly right. 100%. 100%.
So buying some of your time back, and now we're moving to stage 4. We're officially over the hump of stage 3.
So, again, all the same symptoms apply when your business is telling you. If you have an admin manager and you have a production manager, this is usually where a lot of business owners, they get to a point to where they're like the rock star salesperson. They just crush it in sales. They have all these strategic relationships. They're running like 10 quotes a day. It's just hard to keep up with it. When they sell a job, they give it to their admin director who schedules it, who books it, who gives it to the production manager that makes sure that they have all the equipment and the teams to be able to support the work. You got that humming. That's when you're in stage 3. You're just purely focused kind of on the sales. The part where you break into stage 4 is when you replace yourself or add on to yourself and your component on the sales side. And this is really where you kind of become more of a general manager in your business. So this is really where you hire someone who is also responsible for bringing in revenue into your company. Because now you may have technicians that go out and they also do sales. You may be in like the HVAC model or plumbing model to where you have techs that go out and they're also selling. So it can be a little bit of a hybrid. So stage 4 can be, a few different areas, but really stage 4 is where you have all of your different areas in your business your managers that take ownership over each of those areas. They're owning the marketing side. They're owning the admin side. They're owning the production side. They're owning the sales side of it. You have someone that's, responsible for making sure that the sales come in and generate that revenue. And this is really where you can start to see that next big quantum leap in your business growth when you start bringing in salespeople. For me, I felt like I just learned how to print money when I hired my first salesperson. And he sold, $45,000 worth of work his first week that he was working for me. And I was like, oh, I can grow this thing now. Like at first it finally clicked for me that, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you grow the business. And honestly, I mean, I may, if I was to start all over again, I would get a salesperson as soon as humanly possible, because you have someone else that's reliant upon bringing that business into your company. So getting that salesperson to kind of fill in the sales and the marketing arm of the business, that's really where you kind of turn into where you're just more of a general manager. Still, you have managers that are reporting to you. So you have this middle layer of management, right? And you may not be doing the sales at this point. You could even step out of the sales. You're not scheduling any of the jobs. You're not dealing with any of the technicians or the production or the training. You're really just like making sure that each of your managers are reporting to you, giving you their KPIs, and you're just like making small tweaks to the system. But really, you're the general manager at this point.
Yeah, I feel like from this stage here, the symbiotic relationship between having another salesperson and then a production manager, it's like one feeding the other, and it continues to drive that engine. And so when you can even step away from that and work on even higher level stuff from there, now all of a sudden you can see a world in which you're like, okay, if one sales manager can bring in that $45,000 a week, if I bring in another salesperson, which by the way, they're not cheap, and maybe you're paying them on commission basis, but they're generating their own revenue. Now, all of a sudden, I know that I might need another production manager that can hire another crew of 4 leads with 4 assistants. So in this way, you can start to scale up and beyond this stage. But you need to be driving those sales to be able to then hire the people to produce. Oftentimes, I think about a lot from a ladder perspective. You can't climb up the ladder throwing both hands and both feet all up at once, but you can do a little bit of sales and a little bit of production, a little bit of sales, and a little bit of production.
Yeah.
And as you scale those two, you're actually able to climb that ladder higher and higher. So remember, they're kind of like your left hand and your right hand, and then your left foot and your right foot. And the ladders, the little rungs in between, really is that admin manager that's connecting the two, doing the scheduling, keeping things on track. So as you guys think about that analogy a little bit, don't get too far ahead of yourself in one or the other, because you might fall back a couple rungs, on that ladder. And if you do it right, you'll be able to see, hey, I'm selling, and maybe I'm booked out now far too much. Like, oh my gosh, I need more production. And you'll know, because you'll see, okay, I'm booked out a month. All right, I need some more production crew. And obviously what makes this really hard, and I feel like this is where some people stumble, is they sometimes think about seasonality in the same way that they think about advancing the total business. So things might just get really busy, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, production. And then as it starts to taper off, they're like, oh my gosh, too much production. And so that's where you really need to be able to understand how to play that game really well. Do you have any tips and tricks or some kind of strategies to share around kind of the seasonal aspects as it relates to the sales and the production side of things, Brandon?
Yeah, absolutely. On the seasonality side of it, it's a big hang up for a lot of people. They think like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hire a new crew because what if? Because what if all of a sudden at the end of 1 month, work stops coming in? And the problem with that usually is a marketing problem. Usually it's a problem to where you aren't putting the foot enough, hard enough down on the pedal on your marketing to be able to drive that on a proactive basis. Most business owners, they're very reactive. They say to themselves like, oh my gosh, I don't have any work scheduled up, so now I'm going to put the marketing in. But there's a delayed effect. It doesn't happen just necessarily right overnight. So when you're doing your marketing, I kind of call it like a marketing snowball, where you want to like kind of, as you roll it, it keeps growing and growing and growing. And then eventually it gets enough momentum to where it kind of gets going on its own. When you're busy, believe it or not, that's when especially if you're on a growth model, that's when you need to market the hardest. Don't let off the marketing pedal. Like, you may be marketing enough to keep your busy sustained at this level, but if you just added on another production crew, you got to match that. You got to think about continuing to grow that part of it as you go along. Now, in other parts of, in other businesses like mine, where January, February, there's like no work that's scheduled, it drops down to, almost like 25% of what it would be throughout some of our other months. we would deal with this really big seasonality. But you know what? We put systems and processes in there. We put people on unemployment. We gave them incentives and bonuses when they came, and we called them rehire bonuses for them to come back onto our team when work started picking up again, because them being on unemployment would actually be a lot cheaper than us carrying their salaries during that time period. You can always scale back a little bit. And it's not as devastating of a thing to think about, really, when it comes to needing to scale back during some of those seasonality components. Inevitably, it's going to pick right back up. The seasons are short. They're way shorter than you think. When you go into seasons, you're like, oh, I got all this time to work on my business. And then before you know it, like the phones are ringing. You're like, where did January and February go? So, make sure that you don't constrain your business due to fear. If you're really looking to grow, don't let your fear get in the way too much.
Spend into it. Don't
lean into
pull
it,
off. Yeah. Don't pull off the pedal.
Yeah.
Because that's going to let you hire that and keep that other production crew running beyond the period of which it's busy, which I feel evens out that curve a little bit. I feel like the other thing there too is a lot of companies start to introduce recurring service plans or memberships or service agreements, which gives them a baseline set of revenue that recurs month over month. And obviously in the software business, we thrive off of that, but it's completely possible to do in the home service business. And we see it happening more and more, especially as, at House Call Pro, we're able to automate those and automate the credit card collections from the homeowners and just all those components. But when you do that, you're able to have a consistent baseline amount of dollars coming in the door. So you can get an extra lease for a truck, hire the extra person. So even if there's no work to do, you've got people to service on your tune-up schedule or on your maintenance program or whatever is included in that membership program. So that's how you keep the kind of the wheels on the truck turning during some of those shoulder or low seasons.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, it's just, have a solid budget, plan for it. If you know that it always happens, think about, what kind of work can I do in those off seasons? There's a lot of landscaping businesses that'll double up on the snow removal side of things or the lighting side of the business during those off seasons in the wintertime. Or if you're really, really slow in August, we saw a substantial dip in August in our business. But you know what is a huge uptick in that? Schools, because they're closed and you can go in and you can do a whole bunch of work on schools. So we just leaned in really heavily to marketing during schools and offered them lots of awesome options. Or if customers ask for discounts during the busy season, we'd say, hey, no problem. We can give you that discount. You just got to schedule in August. And so we would start moving and shuffling things around to where August would actually become some of our best months, when before that's when we saw this big dip. So it's really a marketing challenge. It's not as much as a, logistical challenge, really. It just becomes on how can I be a creative marketer and think about how I can keep things busy or completely shut down and just embrace it. One of those two.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're creating your own on seasons during the off season. So now that you're in this stage 4, you have the chance to think of things like that. You have the chance to do that high level strategy that you didn't get to in stage 3, 2, or especially 1. So to me, it seems like stage 4 may be I don't know if it's the longest or if any is really measured by time, but I guess there's so much more that you can do now, because when we're looking at the pain point, there's really only one that's going to move you to the next level, which is stage 5.
Yeah. And Alexa, so awesome. I mean, you have this so nailed down. It's so exact when it comes to, you said it perfectly right. You want to stay in that zone of genius, in that upper level executive, to where you're kind of you're just designing a machine. It's what you're doing. And you're looking at all the components and you're like, okay, we got the marketing area. We got to dive in. Oh, now this is teetering up a little bit. The sales are going a little crazy. Let's add into the production side. Oh, this is going a little bit much. Let's put a manager in here. It becomes fun. Honestly, this is the part where I geek out and I love it. Because it's like building a machine. It's like Legos, and it's and you can literally make it run on autopilot like that. That was the aha ding
noise.
There it goes again.
It's like stage 5.
Stage 5. Yeah, that's right. So stage 5, of course, I have these graphics up here. If you're listening, you can always check out the video version to kind of see all of our org charts and slides that we have here. But stage 5 is really a critical part. This is where I just call it the owner. This is where you own a business, man. You're a business owner, and you can step away and you can leave for months on end, and you can have quarterly meetings with your general manager, but you have someone that really has ownership. And now it could be an equity ownership, or it could be a profit share ownership that's not equity based. Or you could just have a really key individual that manages the entire business. But this is really where you have one single reporting line to yourself, and you have someone in between you and all of your managers. So this is someone like a CEO role or a general manager role. In the case of like different branch locations, when I hired my first general manager to kind of watch one single location, I really quickly realized, oh my gosh, I can have a whole bunch of general managers and we could like really scale this out.
Lots of locations everywhere.
Yeah, lots
Franchise.
of locations.
Let's do
It really just becomes a matter of duplicating and replicating on. And this is really where you can get the $3 million plus business. This over here, this is a $3 million business. There's not a whole lot of, technicians and employees that are a part of it. And your GM is a critical role, but if you're going to be in the owner stage, you have to set really clear accountabilities. You don't want the rooster running around in the hen house, to where it's, has the opportunity to embezzle money or steal or, start getting the bad actors in your company. So you don't want to delegate by abdication with the general manager too quickly. You want to set up a lot of good, keys and locks and accountability systems in there so that you can, check in on the KPIs and make sure the business is running healthy. And, that's really that part of it too.
For that general manager role, do you ever consider bringing up that production manager or admin or salesperson that you just recently had below you, or is this best as an external hire?
That's a great question. Great question. Really, I've seen too many people take their best technician or their best manager and promote them into a general management role or even just a management role. I've seen some people take their technicians and say, "This is my best tech. You're now my production manager." And they don't have the skill sets to be able to manage other people. They haven't duplicated themselves. And so whenever you put any managers in place in your business, you want to make sure that they have the people skills and the soft skills to be able to lead by example, because people will quit bosses. And if you put the wrong GM in place, you're going to find yourself really quickly back in the business trying to fix and repair stuff. So it's a very, very key hire, usually a 6-figure individual. And it's someone that you really want to make sure has a good, solid grasp on the mechanics of your business, which is why personally, I like to see something tied to the profitability of the company as part of their comp plan so that, your business goals are aligned with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark Cuban, who was on season 1, he said he's a big believer in giving equity to key stakeholders. So is that something that you've done, or would you recommend tying bonuses into profitability? Like, when do you know to do one or the other?
That's a good question. I'd say as far as like giving out equity to someone, it really depends on what your long-term plans are. If you are determined to keep it a family-owned business and you want to be able to pass it on as a legacy business to your kids, perhaps you don't want to give away equity. However, if you're looking to really have a portfolio of businesses, I would strongly recommend having equity investments, in those. If you want to keep equity is a weird thing. The only way that the other person gets paid is if the business is profitable and you do a distribution, so equity is not really necessarily like some big giving them the keys to the kingdom, because there's a lot of legal stuff you can put into your operating agreements to where you can still maintain full control. You can push them out on demand as needed. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're at risk of your business going under or something just because you give equity to someone else. There's legal things you can do to that. But for me personally, I like having equity stakeholders in, my portfolio of businesses that I own, because they got skin in the game. And even if you want to give equity to someone, make them earn it, have them earn that equity. Don't just necessarily gift it to them right out of the gate. They can earn it over time.
Vesting is key. Everyone at House Call Pro has an ownership stake, and there's a cliff, and there's vesting. And, so if you leave in month 1, you don't get anything. But once you've been here for 4 years, you get what you've been granted. So that's where you earn through it. And then once you have it, you've got it. So I think that's a really good thing just to mention. Don't just give it away, make them earn it. And even maybe set milestones. You can obviously tie things to different KPIs or metrics that they need to achieve within a certain time frame. If you're looking to build a certain size business, you can do that as well. So maybe let's jump into, I know that you've got your MAPS abbreviation, but how does that relate to the $3 million org chart?
Yeah. So, maps, I can kind of skim over it really quickly. I don't want to spend too much time because I don't want to break everyone's brain on too much information overload at once. But, everything that we're talking about, these are these 4 departments that really you have to systemize and hire for. And if you feel overwhelmed, it's probably because you're the manager of each one of these areas: marketing, scheduling, actually doing the work in production, selling the jobs. And if you want to kind of grow this, $3 million, $3 million business, I'm going to pull this up here. This is an example of what a $3 million cleaning company would look like. You have a general manager, you have a production manager, you have an admin manager, you have a sales manager, and the general manager also probably wears some marketing hats to kind of keep this business going. In this $3 million business, this can be a 20% net profit company. So, $600K a year net profit that could be distributed out or reinvested back into the business is a very, very profitable business. The margins on this are really strong, but less than 50% in payroll. So it can be a fantastic business model. And this is really kind of what's led to us creating this, is starting to have multiple service locations. So here's a picture of my fleet and my business. And these were,
I'm trying to find you.
I'm right here. Let's see. There's me right there.
Oh, wow.
And this is my dad, who came in and joined the picture in the shot here.
By the way, I think that's really interesting to point out. I see some of these, and oftentimes they put the owners front and center, like right in the middle. And what I thought was really interesting here is no, because I was trying to I was like, oh, that doesn't look like Brandon. Like, what's going on? So why? What's your philosophy there?
I'm not the forefront of my company ever. I don't want to be the forefront of my company. My team is the reason why we have a success. My technicians, they're the front lines. They're the front and center. And I wouldn't be anything without my technicians. I wouldn't be anything without my awesome support staff. So that's why we put them front and center with this. And I personally hate the pictures where the owner's out in front of everything. I'm just like, ew. If you have that, no judgment, no anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I always wanted to kind of, because, then they're always going to request me too.
Yeah.
If your face is blasted all over the place, they're going to always want to be talking to Brandon. And I want a lifestyle business. I don't want a business to where I'm involved in the business all the time and everyone's always asking for me. Right.
That's a great point.
Great point.
It's a lot easier. Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I'll just throw up really, really quickly here is just kind of this, this $12 million org chart. So as you can see, we have 4 different general managers. This would be 4 micro locations. And that's what we did. We had 3 different branches, and each one had their own, market heads or general managers, whatever you'd like to call them, that just owned their individual locations. And then you can really easily build out a C-level executive chart and, grow a business this way. This is how they grow businesses out, and you become very, very profitable. Some people think that the bigger you get, the smaller your margins get. It's not true. You can actually start taking advantage of economies of scale and run a very, very profitable business just by kind of growing this. So I wanted to show this to get people to think future, right? Think where do I want to go? Because you could stop at stage 3, you could stop at stage 4. It doesn't matter where you stop and where you decide. Everyone's why is different, but at least know what the next step is to watch. And feel free to come back, watch this, listen to it a whole bunch of times. And make sure that you also go and take your MAPS business snapshot report here. This is a link here, bit.ly/MAPS score. You can go there and you can get a free little assessment tool that just kind of gauges how systemized your business is, gives you some key things to start working on.
And we'll include that in the podcast notes too. So you can go and look it up and take the quiz or take the assessment. So I know we have a few more minutes here, but if you want to, do you have anything else to share on these slides, Brandon, or can we wrap up with some questions I have?
No, let's go jump into questions. I'm sure everyone's tired of seeing slides right now.
So, 2 things. First, to kind of wrap this up, for pros that are watching this and they've seen the 5 stages and they're starting to identify where they're at, what words of encouragement do you have for those pros as they start to figure out where they're at in their business and what they need to do to get to the next stage?
That's a great question. I'd say that the first thing is get really, really crystal clear on why you started your business. Why you originally, when you can take yourself back to that first time when you're like, you know what, I want to go into business for myself. I want to quit my job, the security of this over here, and I want to start my own business. Why did you do that? What was the thing that you thought it would deliver to you? Because the reality is to me, my main driving force has never been money. It's always been time freedom. And I like seeing things grow. So I like to create. It almost kind of feels a little bit like my artistic outlet to be able to like grow things and see them go on their own, take a life of their own without my involvement. If you are really crystal clear on what your why is, what that ultimate definition of your personal success is, and forget everybody else's why and just focus on your own. If you run a business that is turnkey and it's automated and it's only doing a couple $100,000 in revenue, but it fits your lifestyle exactly what you want, that is the definition of success. So whatever that looks like for you, make sure that it aligns with your core why with your business. So the only reason why I provide tools like this is not everyone must go out and build a multi-million-dollar business. Some people shouldn't do that, with regards to some of their, things that they have kind of going on in their life. But pick and identify where you feel like your sweet spot is. And then when you get there and you feel like that's where you're at, then be content with that. Be content with that sweet spot and make sure that it aligns with what you're looking to do.
Super helpful. I feel like for people, they often get caught up with the Joneses. And so when they see things, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to grow it to $10 million. Remember, guys, when Brandon's talking about these things, he's talking about it from, hey, you know what, there's this net profit at this level and those things. You might get to a size where you've got 4 people and you're running a crazy net profit because guess what? Your product is so darn good. You've got so much demand and you are such little supply. You could do that and you can charge hundreds of dollars an hour, same or more than what a lawyer would charge with zero of the education. So you can get there and you can absolutely build the business of your dreams. And it comes down to figuring out your why, like you mentioned it, because that might be your why. You might want to turn it over at some point and keep it in the family. You might just want to exit it at some point and have it completely turnkey. So just because you've seen someone else do it or someone is talking about it, or maybe even is judging you based upon the revenue dollars, that's not what it's all about. So I feel like that's a super great thing to kind of leave on. One question, though, that we like to ask all of our guests is, knowing the audience that we have and the types of people that we serve, who do you have in your network that would make a great next guest for us to continue having awesome speakers on Pro Talks?
Oh, I have so many. I know
you've got like a stable of recommendations.
Yeah. I'll give you the full list and you just pick and choose exactly who you want. Yeah, no, I think it, honestly, someone like Matt Clark would be an awesome fit. Mm-hmm. I can give you guys so many off the air if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So Roland doesn't know I want to do this, but before we have 2 minutes and I want to start doing this with all of our guests, we're going to bring back the Greenberg round, and neither of us are prepared for this, but the whole point is to get to know Brandon. So if I'm to post like this 30 seconds, like get to know this week's guest, it's just a bunch of random things about you that Roland and I are just going to ask. So
let's do it.
I'm going to start. Okay. Greenberg round. Question 1. How many kids do you have?
2.
Your turn, Roland.
Favorite Netflix show?
Office.
Guilty pleasure food?
Oh man. I was going to say Moscow mules, but that's not a food.
Mint counts, right? There's ginger beer in there.
Yeah. The first thing is like, that's like my special treat that I have when I'm rewarding myself.
I like it.
The only pro that's going to name an alcohol, or the only guest is going to name an alcoholic beverage on guilty pleasure foods. I'd say cheesecake. Cheesecake would be the actual food.
Cheesecake and a Moscow mule. Okay.
There we go.
I like it. If you could only say one word today, and that's it, what would that one word be?
Yes.
It's a good one. What is something that no one really knows about you, the people you coach, or even the coaches in your program?
I'm a classically trained pianist.
Wow.
Cue Brandon playing us out.
Yeah.
And then roll one more, and then it's 3 now.
Best book you've ever read?
Ooh. Well, first is going to be the Bible, but with regards to business book, I would say Michael Gerber's The E-Myth.
Nice.
A classic. Well,
maybe we'll have to have him on as a guest.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay. So thank you so much, Brandon, for joining Roland and I. I always have so much talking with you. The three of us get along so well and have great conversations. And I learned so much today. Always have a page full of notes after talking with you. So one last thing, if our pros want to follow you or find you or look up Conquer, where will they go?
Yeah, you can head over to conquernow.com, or you can just find me on Facebook and shoot me a friend request, shoot me a message. If there's anything I can do to help out or serve, I'm here. I'm around. So look me up. Let's connect.
Awesome. All right.
Doing great. Thanks so much, Brandon. We're super grateful. We're excited to have you on and hopefully have you back at some point on
Absolutely.
season
My
3.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Or again on season 2.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Look forward to seeing you next week. For more information, go to housecallpro.com/pro talks.